everyone. Welcome to JKL Media Podcast, where we discuss all things pop culture. And today we're going to depart a little bit from our sci-fi fantasy focus, and we're going to talk about a movie called Idiocracy. It is created by the creator of Beavis and Butthead, Mike Judge, who I think his television work has gotten much better over the years. His movie work has always been really good. And I thought it might be a good time to talk about this movie since next year, 2026, is its 20th anniversary. So I am joined by my lovely and talented co-hosts, Jesse Jackson. Hello, Jesse.
Hello.
And Lou Sitzma.
Hello, everyone.
So I need to do a caveat right up front that because of the source material, this is going to be really political. I would love it if people that disagree with us listen to this as well, but this is fair warning to you all that we are going to be discussing a lot of real life politics along with this movie. Okay, so the premise is that we have two guinea pigs actually, that have gone in to test for this freezing technology. They're to be frozen for 1 year, and it ends up being 500 years, where in true dystopian fashion, they wake up to a world that is not their own. So I want to get your guys' quick opinions on the movie, and then we'll talk in depth after that. How about you, Lou?
Oh boy. So this movie is labeled as what? A comedy satire? So when I go in to watch a movie, if the movie tells me that it's a thriller or a horror or an action picture or a comedy, you've either got to scare me, thrill me, or make me laugh. And this movie didn't make me laugh very much. I think I maybe smiled once or twice, but I like the conceit of the movie. But as for the movie itself, it just didn't work for me very much. Yeah, I had a hard time getting through it, and it was only 90 minutes long, and I was like checking my watch quite a bit.
Suspicion.
Yeah, my short answer.
How about you, Jesse?
Yeah, so I am, if you had asked me the question right after I saw the movie the first time, I would be exactly where Lou was. I am not a fan of quote unquote dumb movies. Like I've never sat through Dumb or Dumber. Most the like bro comedies, I just don't enjoy. However, the sports station I listen to, Sports Radio 1310, 96.7 FM.
Free plug there.
Not a
Yes,
sponsor.
for example, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but there's biscuits and gravy flavored Ruffles potato chips.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And they will say, Idiocracy. Only thing this movie got wrong is the timeline. And so when they talk about that big ass fries or this thing, they will say over and over again, we are becoming idiocracy. We are
Mm.
coming idiocracy. So I watched it last night and made it through the whole movie. And you have to turn off your brain. And as we
Yeah.
get down, I'm going to talk about all the things that doesn't work as a movie. But as far as a satire of just how everything gets louder and thinger, when you're watching TV, you have to have your hand on the remote because when the commercials come on, if you don't skip them, the volume's louder than it is just on the
Yep.
TV show. Yeah, I think this will be a fun discussion. I don't think it's a great movie, but the only thing it gets wrong is the timeline.
Yeah. At least in America. And maybe Great Britain. I don't know.
Oh, the world. I think anywhere
The
there's
world
social
is,
media.
yeah, sure.
What is your opinion of the movie? Okay.
But like Jesse said, I just have to turn my brain off and ignore the stuff I don't like because I understand the premise And that hits me a little bit. And I think Mike Judge is talented. I do think that he is sometimes way over the top. But if you've watched Beavis and Butthead, which I didn't really, this is nothing compared to that. That is like the height of his stupidity, really. And I think I can see that he means very well in doing this movie. And I think moving on to other things like Silicon Valley, I think was an amazing television show. And it was also a satire parody of the technology mindset. And it wasn't nearly as over the top as this. I see the progression in his career and his maturity. And looking back on it, when I watched it the first time, like Jesse said, it was a little challenging in parts, but the female perspective on this movie is not great.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that right now. But I've come to appreciate the parts that I like.
I am a Office Space is not a perfect
Mm,
movie,
no.
but there is, and I don't know, have you seen that one, Lou?
Yeah.
Not.
Oh,
Well,
so much better than this one.
we that may have to be one of our things just
Oh
to,
no.
because every computer, even any software company I work for anywhere, they will say, I swear this was based on us. I
I
mean,
know.
and it is, there are so many good things about that. And I remember the first review I heard, there was a guy that was on Kid Craddock in the Morning, and he said, this movie makes me hate my boss, and I'm self-employed in a good way. Yeah, please, let's talk about what doesn't work because there is a lot that doesn't work.
I agree. And again, the only reason I picked this movie out of Mike Judge's movies is because it's timely and
Yes.
because it's hitting the 20th anniversary next
Yeah.
year. Office Space, I love so much more. It has maybe one of the best lines in any movie, any comedy movie, where
Yeah.
the two guys that come in to assess the employees to see who they can cut, efficiency experts. They
Mhm.
say, so you've been missing a lot of work. And he says, I wouldn't say I've been missing it.
Yes.
And I just love that line so much. And
If there was
it,
only in like that in this movie.
right?
I like
It's,
money.
this
Yeah.
movie is a very base comedy.
Star Trek episode.
It is,
Yeah, see that I had not thought about, but yeah.
that's a lot of it. So the things that don't work, as I mentioned before, I want to bring up that the female representation is very poor. Every female that is in this movie is a prostitute. That's literally every female.
I thought
Oh,
the
the
Sarah
chick,
Rue or
right,
in
right,
the
right.
cabinet. Yeah.
And she's okay with being objectified, which
Yes.
again, I don't
I
care
get
so
you.
much
Yeah.
about that. But okay, yeah. So most of them are dumb or hookers, let's put it that way. And I, there's a lot of the juvenile sexual humor in this. I actually enjoyed the fact that they're watching a guy get hit in the balls over and over again because that seemed to be a thing that happened a lot when this movie was made. Like Jackass was really big, America's Best Home Videos and all that stuff. Those things were based on the fact that people were being mostly physically punished for something that they did. And so I found that quite amusing. And the fact that guy is a big celebrity, the guy who keeps getting hit in the balls is a big celebrity. And like I said, it's not subtle. And I usually
No.
like things that are much more subtle than this. However, like I said, I think the movie has just gotten a bit more timely over the years. In 2016, Mike Judge said, maybe we should have President Camacho come out and do a boxing match with the current nominees and see what happens. And Terry Crews was up for it, but they didn't do it. So they even recognized that 2016 was a farce, and unfortunately, that farce came true. What do you guys have any other examples of big things that the movie doesn't do right for you? I'll start with you, Lou.
I think the biggest problem, besides being a comedy, like I said, it didn't make me laugh. The concept of the movie and like the sets and all the visual things, but the characters were like totally uninteresting because they were so dumb that you were always ahead of them and you were, okay, guys, let's get to this point in the story. So I always felt like I was 20 minutes ahead of where the movie was going. And so that becomes very frustrating. And the dynamics of the characters, like it's tough. It would be tough to cast this movie unless you had a really big budget for just casting, because the problem is, what's the guy's name, the lead in the movie? Luke Wilson. No, I've never been a big fan of Luke Wilson. I find him a pretty flat actor, but he's basically has to play the straight man. So where the movie would live and die to me is around the surrounding cast who have to play all the dumb people. And the movie to me felt like they spent their money on the two leads and everybody else was like low rated talent. And so there was nobody that's standing out because I'm thinking like in a movie like this, if you would have had Terry Crews was actually not too bad, but you needed some big names, big comedian. Like I'm thinking of Robin Williams and if he was still alive, George Carlin or something like that, even Keanu Reeves or something like that. Just they needed big name actors to fill out the surrounding cast, especially in the White House. That would have really helped sell the comedy aspect of it. But because of that, it just really became a chore to watch or to watch the characters because there's the dialogue is so dumb. And I'm not saying I'm Einstein or anything like that, but I like to watch smart people. I like to watch a Hannibal Lecter or somebody like a Sherlock
Sure.
Holmes that I
Yeah.
can't, that I'm always trying, like, how's he doing this? How's he doing this? Like with these guys, I'm going like, come on, guys, let's just get to the next story point. So that was the frustrating part of it for me. And those two elements of the, but didn't make me laugh. And I was constantly waiting for the characters to catch up to the story is what really hobbles this movie for me. The independent nature feeling of it. Also, I think the budget wasn't there to do maybe what Mike Judge's vision was. Like I said, the surrounding cast was probably more important than the actual leads in this movie, and they just didn't have the budget for the kind of actors that they needed for those roles.
Fox
Yeah.
Searchlight was their backer, and they didn't have any faith in this movie. I think they were doomed from the start,
Yeah.
essentially. And this movie has become a cult classic, but it barely made any money when it came
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. I like Dax Shepard, Terry Crews.
Justin
Huh?
Long was funny.
Yeah, Justin Long was funny. The guy who played the judge,
Uh,
Milton in Office
oh,
Space.
right,
Yeah.
Stephen Root.
So here's my problem is I think I'm a fairly intelligent person, but I'm at best average like Luke Wilson, right? I
Wrong
I
still.
couldn't fix crap, right? Okay, yeah, using water instead of Gatorade, that's a no-brainer. So my part of my brain was he was a librarian, so I wish they had read instead of him sitting on his butt all day. I want to keep this job because I love to read.
Agreed.
Yeah, in my mind, because how's he going to fix anything else? Okay,
Right.
good, but because he's not, yes, compared to them, he's smart, but he isn't.
Yeah.
And it isn't like they established that there was a library that people have ignored where he could go and do research. So
Right.
I realized that's not the point of the movie, but I kept thinking of those kind of things. What can he do? So it, the very obscene humor, watching the ass getting
Hmm.
hicked in the balls and everything. After a while, it's okay, yeah, can we move on? And so I think it could have been a lot funnier if they dialed it back just a little. And
Right.
how did Starbucks become a brothel?
Right.
I can't
I
connect
don't get that
A to
progression.
F. Yeah, Fuddruckers, okay, that makes sense.
Sure. Always made fun of that name
And
Yeah,
when
Costco's
you
still
but
were.
Costco.
yeah,
Yeah, but
Costco's
it's
still Costco.
huge.
Yep.
But you're just like, how? And you just start, you got to turn off your brain because you're like, okay, Justin Long is very funny.
Yeah.
And I get the idea that they've dumbed down so that you push a button to where you're going to go for the medical stuff, but it just seems like there would be some kind of like, how do you become a doctor? Like, you saw a plane falling down. So you had to turn your brain off.
To what the movie's trying to poke fun at.
So
Yeah,
if you're going to, I would have made it a little more,
plausible.
yeah, exactly.
That would have made the humor more accessible, I think.
Yes.
Relatable. Yeah.
Imagine if he would have made this after Silicon Valley. So he's already got that humor dialed in to
Mm,
reach a much smarter audience. And he says, okay, let's not make this quite so caricaturish.
yeah,
And I do think that the movie would have highly benefited from a little less dumb humor and a little more smart humor.
yeah,
This isn't purporting to be Airplane. And I think he fell into that trap a little bit of, I gotta be super funny. And going over the top is less funny than being subtle.
yeah,
The thing with me is I feel like there's a lot of stuff in this movie that almost outweighs that. I don't chuckle out loud at this movie at all. There's some humor in parts of it that I smile at, and my husband and I were like, yeah, that's pretty funny. But it's not a laugh out loud comedy for me. I'm horrified by parts of it, and
yeah,
in both ways. Horrified in the base humor, and then horrified at how things are going that I can see being very plausible. So I want to talk about a couple things in turn, and I don't think we have to get too much more in depth with this. This might be a short episode, but there's a few things in particular that I think we should discuss.
okay.
First, the garbage situation. That is very much something I can see happening. We already see parts of that happening with the great plastic island out in the ocean. With us, we actually ship our garbage over to Asia, and then they root through it. They have people that actually root through it to find things for their family. And it horrifies me that this happens. And so to have these towering piles of garbage, to me, I'm like, yep, I see that starting to happen already. And I don't think it's going to get to that level that it's like enough to level buildings and stuff. But man, we're a consumer society and we don't care about a lot of things. A lot of us don't take stands, me included. I'm holding up here a plastic water bottle, which I should not be drinking out of plastic water bottles if I was really hard line. What did you guys think of that plot point, Jesse?
Yeah, it does remind me that the landfill, and I tend to not drink out of a bottled water because I like my water with ice. And we have a filter in the refrigerator, but my son and wife drink all the time. And for the longest time, it really irritated me. And then I realized it's actually cheaper than a can of cola, but I'm not complaining about that
Right?
because I'm not very good at recycling aluminum cans. I just bought a new car a couple of months ago, and I was really looking at going to get a hybrid. And then I ended up buying a car that actually gets worse gas mileage than my one before. Yeah,
Because of how it
yeah,
performed and
yeah, Uber Eats delivering.
yeah,
We've just gotten in the habit. And so I could see this. I'm just going to take a dump while I'm watching TV so I don't have to miss anything.
yep,
It's just silly enough, but there's enough little basis in a couple of things where you don't go, okay, this is just dumb. There's just a little bit of that's satire, but I do see their point. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, Lou.
Yeah, the garbage thing was like, it was a good poke at current situations. I know that landfill, like getting a new landfill in a community is always a big issue because where are you going to put it?
Yeah.
because that piece of land is basically no longer viable for use until it's filled up and then they cover it over. And it does make you think about the packaging on a lot of things. A lot of waste is there. Then we've gone through this whole rigmarole with getting rid of plastic straws and using paper straws. It's definitely an issue, and the outcome of what happened in the movie is over, again, literally over the top, but they're making a point, and I thought it was. I think the ideas in the movie are good. It's the execution and story that just doesn't work for me. There's a lot of stuff that we could talk about, especially once they get to the White House.
I'm saving that for last.
Yeah, that whole monster truck vibe, pro wrestling vibe is really strong in there, and there's no doubt that we can see that. But the garbage stuff was, I think we're all guilty of it because it's a convenience thing and it's a laziness thing at times. 90% of the time, we drink our water out of pitcher because we have a Brita filter, so we filter the water and we put it in the fridge and then we drink out of a glass. But occasionally, the local drugstore or grocery store will have a special on a pop, and then you buy four or five cases of pop, and then you've got a garbage bag, two garbage bags full of empty plastic pop bottles. So facilitate between back and forth in that, and it was a good point to bring up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he likes to hit people over the head, or he
Yeah,
did at least.
yeah.
Okay, number two, I want to talk about our judicial system. I'm I feel like laughing because it has gotten, I don't know about you guys, but I watched Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, and he does an episode on a social issue every week. And it was a few seasons ago, but he did an episode about our prison system in the United States. And I am constantly horrified by the things he finds. Our prison system is privatized. So as many people as they can shove into prisons, the better it is for them as a company. They make more money by shoving people into prisons. There's virtually no health system. They get their food from like these big companies that there's hardly any kind of a think about who they're serving to, what they're serving. There's no nutrition in it. It's just whoever bids for the lowest price for the food. They're treated very poorly. And on the other side of it is our legal system, which also is terrible. Oh, hey, we're great that we allow people a lawyer for free, except those lawyers are so overworked that a lot of times they don't even know their client's name until they walk into the courtroom. And sometimes in some areas of the United States, you do have to pay for a public defender. It's not a lot, it's not as much as a regular lawyer, but it's not a free lawyer. And they hide it behind it's a fee for this or it's a fee for that. Like the
Yeah.
phone company hides fees and stuff. I have no idea what the legal system is like in Canada. So did you see any parallels to your legal system, Lou?
Not really,
Mm.
because we don't have any privatization of those aspects of our society. Prisons are not privatized. The medical profession is not privatized. The law system is not privatized. But recently, with the current administration, we're hearing stories. There was a woman out in BC. She got detained at the border for not filling out her forms correctly. And she's basically, they were rotating her between jails, try to like a shell game to keep her from being able to be contacted by anybody or whatever. And they were just doing it because they were wanted to make money. So that's really the only contact I have with it. Now, and I might be incorrect about what if there's any aspects of our social services that are privatized. I'm not aware of any myself, but I think that's a very salient point that anything that is done for social reasons, for legal reasons, should not be privatized because that's not a net gain type of endeavor. That's unfortunately a necessary evil kind of endeavor. And you should not be looking at trying to profit from it. Like with the, especially like the health situation that you guys have in the States, it constantly boggles my mind that people can lose their home due to illness. That's just not something that happens up here. Like our healthcare is provided for. Sure, we still have to pay prescription fees and stuff like that, but if like well, I've had both my knees replaced, that would have if I had to pay for that, it would have been like $100,000. I didn't have to.
or more.
I didn't have to pay for any of that. That was all covered by the health system. You know that, but because America has such a large footprint in the world, we in Canada are aware of your situations in regards to how you handle your legal and health. So I still think it's a good warning for the rest of the world. And fortunately for most the rest of the world, they've taken that message to heart already and already
Right.
are providing those types of services as part of the basics social safety net that they provide. Yeah, we pay higher taxes probably than you guys do, but that's the price you pay. And I much prefer our approach to it than your country's.
Just as a side note here, I stayed in the hospital for about a week and it was $30,000.
Ouch.
So now, mind you, my
Really?
insurance covered a great deal of that, but
Right.
not a lot of people have insurance like mine. And also, one of my 13 medications, I don't take them all every day, by the way, but just one of them that I do take every day is $6,000 a month.
Ouch.
No,
Oh,
my insurance pays for that as well.
my
But
God.
again, if you're poor and you don't have good insurance and you have MS, so what? You just don't get medicine and you get worse and you die. And that's what happens here. So let's go on to Jesse now.
Yeah, the idea that, and yeah, we are getting very political, is that if you talk about this, there is a pretty high percentage go, they're just criminals.
Right.
They're all guilty. Why should we care? Don't break don't break the law and you won't have to go to a prison that's overcrowded. And yeah, I certainly wish everyone wouldn't commit crimes, but that doesn't mean you turn off your charity. What really struck me, not so much the prisons, but probably 3 or 4 years ago, John Oliver did a segment was on bail and how some states and counties have started where you're just given a piece of paper and say, Jesse Jackson, you have to be at this for a nonviolent crime. You need to be at this courthouse at this date. That's it. If you don't, we will come arrest you. You don't have to pay money, don't have to do anything because bail you never get back because you have to go to a bail bondsman and the bail bondsman charges that 10% and it doesn't come back. And if you're innocent, doesn't matter. And it was funny, but also sad, right? Where the Luke Wilson character, Joe, is sitting there going, wait a minute, just let me just tell my story. And that's not going to work. And the whole it is a cliche, right? Watching these prison movies about you're going to have to worry about yourself and how there's thought and how I am sure there are very good people who are prison guards. But the cliche is that they're just there because that's all they can get or they like having that power.
Hmm.
And it is very sad.
We sweep them under the rug
Yeah.
and they're still human beings.
Yeah.
I think that things are a cliche for a reason
Yeah.
because they actually have happened. And we see in our society all the time that people abuse authority.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's not all of them, but again, not all of them isn't good enough. No one in authority should have a sadistic streak in them. I I find it wrong all the time that people just keep getting their jobs back even if they have done horrible things that they should be imprisoned for.
Yeah.
And also, we say, hey, and I'm not counting myself as one of these people. No offense to anybody that does, but hey, they're just criminals. Why should we care about them? They're not all criminals. They're
Yeah.
not. A lot of people are imprisoned falsely or they are held because they can't afford bail, even if they're innocent. People who they couldn't pay their car insurance or something, they end up getting called into court, and if they can't pay for their bill right there, they get taken to jail and they end up spending time there. And every time they go, they have to pay more because there's interest on top of that payment and interest on top of that payment. One of the examples that I remember is they took a guy to prison who was actually on a breathing machine because he didn't pay something. I don't remember what, but he didn't pay something. And it's because he has to pay so much for this treatment that he's on. And of course, he didn't get the treatment in prison and he
Yeah.
died. And things like that happen all the time here. And I just, them throwing the food into the cell and the guys all diving on it. Yeah, it's really close to that sort of thing. And the overcrowding is insane. I heard people, and this is evil, I think, say that COVID was great for prisoners because it ended up thinning out the herd because they were all so crammed in that half of the people got COVID and didn't get treated and they died. And that's just evil as far as I'm concerned. They're human beings, and there's a small exception that I make for people who are undeniably evil that are in prison.
Yeah.
But otherwise, there's people that have been in jail for years and years because they had pot, which is now technically legal in America, and they don't get pardoned. They're still in jail for 15, 20 years because they had some pot. They weren't selling it. They weren't. This kind of thing makes me think of that and it infuriates me. And I would hope that, yes, the whole movie was about privatizing everything. And that is very prevalent here in the States. In fact, the movie essentially was privatized. Starbucks and Carl's Jr. and some of the other, even Gatorade, which really wasn't that liquid in it, but they mentioned Gatorade several times. They all saw the movie and thought, hey, can I back out of this? Because
Yeah.
we don't want to be associated. And they said, nope, you signed a contract.
Yeah.
So the fact that our justice system is completely privatized is a crime in itself. Do you guys have anything else before we move on to the government thing?
No, I'm good.
I did like that the Costco was the only thing that was still present in a recognizable form in the future, but just that it was super large. So I assume it subsumed all the other corporations. That,
But it wasn't like today,
yeah,
definitely.
that was kind of interesting. I think the interesting thing about most science fiction movies, when they're trying to predict the future, they're not bad at foreseeing technology, but it's the social aspect of things that they always miss. And social media has become such a thing today, and I haven't seen any movie really tackle it with the appropriate amount of attention. And this movie is no different, unfortunately, in that aspect. They kind of glance at it when the one character, Dax Shepard,
Yeah, Frito Pendejo.
Pendeto, that
Yeah.
he's not watching TV, which is probably like their version of social media in the future. But yeah, that's one aspect that these future movies just they're not too good at the social stuff, and it's too bad because it's fragmenting news coverage and whatnot, and giving distorted views, and everybody's in their own echo chamber, and you get all these alternate realities. Like basically, there seems to
There
be
are alternate realities.
there seems
Yep.
to be two realities that people are living right now, depending on your political leanings, or whether you're on the left or the right. You have totally different views of the world. In this movie, everybody seems to have the same view, which is a dumb view. I don't
Yeah.
know what to say about that. But yeah, it's the lack of any attention being paid to social media and its impact on people and the fracturing of worldviews that that are being created because of it. It's unfortunate that's never been covered in a movie yet. Hopefully, we'll see that at some point in the future, but nobody's decided to tackle it yet.
Yeah, it's a very complicated issue, I think. And I think the closest we have come to that is like Black Mirror, which does handle things that are much more personal, down
Yeah,
to a personal level, than these movies that are great and sweeping and they want to show all the darkness in the future and everything, when they really should concentrate on real life things.
yeah.
And I
Even
will
a movie like The Social Network focused on the formation of the company, but it never really explored the impacts that it had on society.
exactly. It doesn't dive into any of the people, the users, essentially. And I will give this movie a very light pass on that because Twitter hadn't been a thing yet. I don't know if it was formed yet in 2004 when this movie was made, but I joined pretty early and I joined in 2009. The only thing they had back then was like Facebook was just starting up and MySpace, which we know has gone the way of the dodo since then, but there wasn't a lot of that. And I think he would have included more of that if it had been a thing. I'm just guessing. I'm hoping at least. Okay, before we go into the government, let's talk about some of the characters real quick. We've already talked about Pendejo, which is a horrible name, a horrible thing in Spanish. Dax Shepard, and I like him. He's married to Kristen Bell. I
Which to
think
me means he's way overachieved.
he is punching above his weight,
Yeah.
definitely.
I guess he makes her laugh.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think so. Yeah.
they laugh a lot, but they have had huge issues in their marriage and they're very open about it. And I like them as a couple because they're very transparent and they're like, look, don't idealize us because we're not that couple.
Yeah.
And I dig that about them. Of course, Terry Crews, and we have another Michael. Oh my God.
Mike
He,
Judge.
no, he's part of The Office
Oh, okay.
stable of actors. He was in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Kristen Bell, of course, was in The Good Place. Her husband guested on The
Mhm.
Good Place, and I think he was also in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. But we also had Brad Jordan, who is a rapper who played Upgraded. David Herman played the Secretary of State. He was one of the leads in Office Space. Justin Long, as we mentioned before, who played Dr. Lexus. Stephen Root was Judge Hector. We had Thomas Hayden Church as Bronto's chief executive and Sarah Rue as the attorney general. She was uncredited, by the way, which, again, women, please. That was also an issue in Silicon Valley. There were quite a few women in tech even back then, and they were very underrepresented. He also, like Mike Flanagan, and I hate to compare him, he also has a stable of actors that he puts into things. Stephen Root, he uses a lot. He was
Yeah.
a voice in King of the Hill. He was a voice in Beavis and Butthead. He played a character in Office Space, which was out just before this. He plays in this. I think he's had a role in everything that he's done. David Herman has been in a lot of things. Thomas Hayden Church has been in a lot of his things. I do that when he finds someone that fits his aesthetic, he finds a place for them. And it's not like it stands out as, hey, I'm just fitting this person into the slot. He gives them a role that suits them. Most of all, Terry Crews, I thought he was fantastic in this. And there's no bigger advocate of this movie than Terry Crews. He would love to see an Idiocracy 2 updated for today's people. And he has said that he would love to go out and do things as President Camacho. I love his name in this. He was Dwayne Elizondo Mountain Dew Herbert Camacho. And the names made me giggle a little bit. Even Anthony Citric Campos was the Secretary of Defense. Lots of pretty amusing names, I thought. But In particular, I love Terry Crews. His depiction of a president before we had Trump as even a thought, it blows my mind because it is essentially dialing up Trump and also dialing down Trump. I'm going to start with you, Jesse. How did you find some of those side characters?
I loved Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and so he is funny in this, and he seems to be the right, he found the right sweet spot in this idea. Maybe he's a little smarter than everyone else, even though he's crazy.
He recognizes the fact that they need someone at least.
Yeah, and the one of the things that has happened over the last 6 months is Chris has got me watching a little bit of WWE, not very much, and he tends to just get me on the good parts. But there is a wrestler called CM Punk who is absolutely amazing on the mic. And just he will when he takes the mic and he does a promo, which is what they call the "Hey brother,"
Yep.
he is you cannot tell when he goes from just talking to when he's doing full character. It's just a seamless transition. So I enjoyed seeing when he went full promo. I think he was funny, the fake wig, just the idea. And then just to go back, Joe, our hero, has to do that at the end when he's president.
Yep.
He embraces that he has to do all this and wear all the craziness and the big medals that show, who I am. So yeah, Cruz was, I think, absolutely one of the best.
I love his speech from the tank.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
One of the sweetness was Joe shows again that even though he's average, he's not that bright, kept, you have to keep painting.
Oh, yeah.
Promise me you keep painting. His
Right.
belief in her was
And
really
think she
sweet.
ever came clean to him?
I noticed they showed her clean painting at the end, and she
Yeah.
was
A
not a
horrible
good
painting.
painter.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So how about you, Lou? I know you didn't like some of the characters, but you mentioned Terry Crews. How did you feel about Terry Crews?
The thing that stood about me for Terry Crews was, but I thought, man, that guy's got big guns. Like
yeah,
I couldn't believe his biceps. I was going, holy mackerel, that guy's got big biceps. But this would be the easy point in the our chat where I could go like full. And from that aspect, I appreciate it. But the characters themselves, I don't know. They just, I was just like, seriously, these guys look like, yeah, they all look the same. They all had that same stupid bowl haircut. Like the kid wasn't funny. If I'm looking at these characters and I'm thinking about Austin Powers when he's sitting around the table with his gaggle of supporters or whatever, they were funny.
Mm.
Seth Green was funny as his son.
Oh,
Robert
yeah.
Wagner was hilarious, and then Rob Lowe as his right-hand man, and then you had Frau, whatever her name was.
Luker
Lu-
was Frankenstein.
those characters had personality. These ones were just like, it was just
yeah.
the talent wasn't there to do it. I'm
They were
sorry.
dumb,
They were
for sure.
this didn't work for me, but what they were depicting resonated with me probably definitely more today than if I had watched this movie even 10 years ago. I don't think it would have made nearly the same impression on me, but because it's a parody of, and maybe it was unintentional or maybe it was intentional, I don't know, but it's an instance of life imitating art, and that is pretty weird. Like for me as a Stephen King fan, I always think to The Dead Zone with King writing about Greg Stillman pushing hot dogs and wearing hard hats and getting elected president. It's that
Yep.
same kind of dumbing down of the whole social progress of mankind. And from that, again, what the movie was depicting was much more interesting to me than what the characters were doing. And the only reason I had any sort of resonance with Justin Long is because I really loved him in the Die Hard movies, and he's also in the Jeepers Creepers
Jeepers
movie.
Creepers.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just this. I just like this whole dumb thing just really got I was tired of it after 5 minutes. So by the time we got to the White House, I was just like, oh God, more dumb people. Great. So I just didn't, none of the characters resonated with me. It just, they all seemed pretty characteristics, cartoonish. And yeah, but
Sure.
what they were representing was interesting.
Yeah, and I think if anyone is wants to comment, but that's the premise of the movie, we get that. I understand that was the point, but
Yeah.
yeah, it is though, it is, there's no depth or interest in it. They're just copy of a
Yeah.
copy.
Yeah. It's like when you watch a movie, you want to see if it's a professional thing. You want to see the best of the best. You don't want to see the average starship captain. You don't want to see the average James Bond. You want to see the best. And so when you give me an average character and he's interacting with even less average characters, like how am I supposed to be invested in this movie? That's why I said the guest cast would have been so much more important than the leads in this movie. But
I get that. I do. One of the things I think of is once he glommed onto that presence, it would have been difficult for him to make any character any smarter. How would he have fit them into a slot? And again, I understand they're all dumb. And at one point in the movie, you're just like, okay, show me anyone else that
right.
has any
Would
brain.
work better for me if they would have had somebody like Sheldon or Leonard from The Big Bang Theory go to the future. Like that would have been
Right.
funnier.
Someone really smart. Or if they had made maybe Rita smarter than she appeared, and that would have been funny.
Low ceiling for itself.
And I think he made it difficult for himself in what he chose to do there.
Satire to me is the toughest of all the
Yep,
movies to pull off successfully.
I agree. Like I said earlier, subtlety is a much better form of humor to me. The only reason I like it so much is because it was so prescient. And I
Yeah.
hate that it was because this was before Trump, before that. And I just, I have to think to myself, what did he have a time machine for real, Mike Judge? Because how did he get so much of this right? Smart people aren't having kids and dumb people are having a million kids. And that's real. I hate to say that, but as someone without kids, I
Like
don't
that
know.
flow chart when they were showing like the football player and his father. Yeah,
Jerry,
it's that kind of mentality, right?
Yeah, and it is, as I said, this is more of a interesting concept than an execution.
right,
And I go back to what I said at the beginning, the idea of a stupid sports station talking about the only thing they got wrong is the timeline.
right.
And
No
they're
kidding.
all from the
Yeah.
media.
And they picked people that's loyal to him.
They
And
kiss his ass.
yes, and I say this line all the time. It's from Sports Night. Aaron Sorkin wrote it. If you're dumb, you surround yourself with smart people. If you're smart, you surround yourself with smart people who disagree with you.
In this
Or
current.
this
No,
is he will not.
he can't have anyone smarter than him.
And he can't have anyone disagree with him.
Correct.
The idea he says, everything that good is happening is my fault. Everything bad's happening is Biden's fault. I mean,
Correct.
that's childish, but
It is.
actually said that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because we found a third thing now where if someone has become so unpopular that every part of their life is failing, he distances himself
Yeah.
because Mr. Musk has had so much trouble, and all of a sudden he's no longer part of the cog in the machine that is Trump Incorporated. He's a narcissist. He hires people that love him because that's the only way he gets love, essentially. We know his parents were highly critical of his abilities. He paid someone to get him through college. He paid someone to get him out of the military. And I think he is the example of the characters in this movie. Does he think he's fooling us by saying his IQ is so high and his weight is so low and he's tall and no, he doesn't fool most of us. And I would like to say that in this society, we're the majority, but I don't think we are at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the interesting parallel from the movie for what's going on, like with staying in line with Trump and that, is like in the movie they kept on talking about the drink, was it
Right. It has
Brano? Well, it has
electrolytes.
electrolytes. It has
Right.
electrolytes. What does that
Right.
even mean? It's one of the most recent social labels that I just detest is woke. Like to me,
Oh,
it's
Yes.
such a lame label. What does that
Yeah.
mean? What does it cover? It's basically a blanket statement that said woke is anything that I don't agree with. If
correct.
I'm not woke, then what am I dead? Am I a
Right.
zombie? Like I just
Yeah.
Yes.
that label
You're
just
a
drives
zombie.
me crazy.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's like when everybody in this movie kept on saying, "Oh, it's got electrolytes." So
Right.
what?
And they couldn't say what that was
Yeah, the group
to
think.
people. And people will ask him, so what are his policies? And they'll be like, he wants to take America back. Okay, what are his policies, though? He wants to make America great again, but how? They can't answer that question.
They elected Trump because they thought he was a good businessman. I'm going,
And
good
yeah,
businessman? He bankrupted how many companies? And one of them was a casino?
yeah.
Yeah.
And he's a good
How do you
businessman?
bankrupt a
Casino.
casino? Right.
But it's got electrolytes.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
exactly. Because he says he's a good businessman and they want to believe everything, which I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I don't get that.
But just to give fair due to I understand why a lot of people did vote for Trump, because on the flip side, the Democrats were talking about if you have the triangle or the pyramid of basic needs, whatever that, I can't remember who. So you've got like food, shelter, and then you have companionship and blah blah blah. The Democrats were like on a level way past where most people are still stuck on the basic needs, food and
Right.
shelter category, and the Democrats don't approach that at all. Where the Republicans, whether you believe the message or not, their America Great Again was basically addressing those kinds of needs. What's going on right now with the tariffs and that, I think it's really going to bite them in the ass when the
You
midterm
think?
elections come around,
Mm,
because grocery prices are not going down. But the Republicans are campaigning on the basic needs of people, whereas the Democrats are stuck up in the clouds where nobody really cares about that stuff because they're just trying to put food on the table.
And
It's
yeah, you said that really well,
agreed.
Lou. I've listened to Jon Stewart's podcast, and he had both Pete Buttigieg and Jen Pulaski on, and they were talking about you can't win an election if all you're talking about is the morality of
and
January 6th.
Constitution or the
Yeah, this
rule of
thing.
law.
Yeah, it's got to be what's in it for me.
I did do a caveat of,
Yeah, this
Yep.
is it for some reason, and I will give them credit. Somehow they've been able to make them not be cafeteria Trumpers. Like there are cafeteria Catholics, right?
correct.
But I have an online friend who is very strong Israel. And in her mind, and we're not going to debate, that's just her belief is that Trump is more pro-Israel than Biden was. So therefore, she gave all her
And
support to
that's the
Trump.
one thing she hangs her
Yeah,
hat on.
so she doesn't care about anything else.
Yeah.
And she is visiting Anne
Okay. Yeah.
Frank home as we're recording this,
Oh, cool.
talking about how sad it makes her. You realize you're on the side of people that would turn her in.
Correct.
I really wish Joe Biden had not run again.
I agree.
I don't know if anyone would have beat Trump, but at least we would have had a little better chance. I was happy with Kamala Harris. I wanted her to win. I think he did himself a disservice.
The
Yeah,
other factor for me is that there's two factors against Kamala Harris. She's a woman and she's
yeah,
not white. Would
That,
have been a
yeah.
much
yeah,
better choice.
our time.
And last night we went to dinner with two dear friends, and we said,
But
Yeah.
no,
oh,
just sad to say, it needs to be the Democrats need to have a white guy
Yep.
as the candidate,
I
so
agree.
white guy as the VP. And
Yep.
these two white guys, maybe the second one could be Jewish, maybe.
Can't have a Jewish name though.
Right.
For
This
real.
this country is not ready for that.
Yeah, I agree. It
And
is
that's
not our
sad.
time to push agendas. It is not that time.
Yeah.
Right now, we need to wrestle things down. And
gotta
the
get
only
back
way
to
to do
basics.
that, right, is to actually hop in the mud. It is. And if that's the only way we can get it, then do it. Lou said it perfectly that the Democrats really didn't hit people that needed to be hit. The talking points were good for me. Let's tax the rich. I'm wholeheartedly for that. But the rich were paying for everything for Trump. He had a reason to lie. And I think Democrats' downfall is that, and I hate to say this, but they don't lie enough because people that are unscrupulous don't care. They're
Yeah.
gonna lie. And again, I hate what I'm saying, you guys. I really do. But it's the cold, hard facts of where we are right now. And people have it hard. So we need to not focus so much on big issues. We need to focus on smaller issues. Trump said he's going to bring down the price of gas and groceries. He's not doing that, obviously, but he said it. And he never meant to do it. But rich people don't care about the cost of groceries, so he doesn't
Yeah.
either. And I'm not lumping him in with rich people because he's not. He is not even in the top 100 richest people in the world. We're getting a little off topic. This movie addresses a lot of those issues. And I marvel at the fact that so many of these things are, they look pretty true to what has been happening in society now, at least in America. I know in a lot of other countries as well, and America affects a lot of other countries. I think if the way things keep going, we're not going to be a world power. Literally, I do think that we're going to be knocked down the ladder quite a bit.
Yeah, China's got it.
I think so too.
Because you
And
just can't beat their labor situation.
yep,
Yeah.
that's right. And we don't care about that. We ship our labor off because no one wants to work low-paying jobs anymore. And no one can
Yeah.
because we can't afford to live
Right.
unless we work high-paying jobs. And
Yep.
that's a huge problem here. And then Trump doesn't make any friends. He wants to take Canada. He wants to take Greenland. He wants to be buddy-buddy with the Saudis and whoever pays him money, he wants to be in their pocket. And he just wants everyone around him. I think part of him wants Mexico, except they're brown. And he doesn't want brown people. Canada and Greenland are mostly white. So he'll go for them first. I do think there's a lot of things that people don't see. He says things that people want to see, and that's as far as it goes, and that's all they see. So yeah, Biden stayed in too long. Kamala didn't get her chance. Kamala was not the candidate we needed. And again, I think it just mirrors the kind of things that happen in this movie as well, backwards.
I was wondering if Luke Wilson's character was he only going to be president for 2 terms, but because he's so smart, he could have easily been in there for life.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think they would have.
Why would have Terry Crews' character given up the presidency then if it wasn't that type of society?
I don't know, talked him into it.
I don't know.
Yeah, I
But
think
that
he would
you
have
see,
stayed.
you can't look too deeply in the movie that.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's something that he's looking to change in America as well.
and that's the other shortcoming with the movie is what's the rest of the world like in this vision of the
Yeah.
future? Because for somebody who's not an American, and for Canada, I think versus the rest of the world, our position is a bit different in that because we're geographically joined at the hip and our history, shared history was such that we felt like we were brothers. We
Yep.
realized that
Yeah.
you were our big brother and we were your little brother, but we still felt like brothers. But Trump has totally destroyed that in Canada with his 51st state comment. I just don't think he realizes how angry that makes Canadians. And then the rest of the world, to a lesser degree, the things that he's saying about them, like that they're taking advantage of the United States. It's, dude, you're the most powerful country in the world. How can anybody
Yeah.
take advantage of you? But Trump is very transactional, and the damage that he's done to international relationships, I think, is more than anything the reason why, Karen, that as you said, I don't think the States is going to maintain its global position. It's becoming more an isolationist nation, and that in this today's world, I just don't think that's going to work.
No.
What that's going to lead to in the future, I don't know. And it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen in 4 years from now.
Agreed.
Is there going to be a reverse of field, or
Knows.
it doesn't even matter?
Trying to.
A guy like that, he is now the oldest president in the history, I
Yeah,
think.
Biden
Like,
was.
now he
Yeah.
is.
He's going to put up JD Vance for sure.
This movie could be even more astute in its perception of the future if things could really fall apart, like the whole
Yep.
global network falls apart, and we could see the types of situations that are happening in the movie.
It's going to take a very long time to fix any problems that come up, any
Yeah.
problems that have come up over the last 10 years or so. We have to work on our relations with other countries and all that stuff. But this movie really
We're
does put
out
a
of time.
Yeah.
this movie does put a spotlight on those things. So I think it's only right that we discuss a little bit of that at least at the
Yeah,
end.
Yeah.
yeah. So for me, I would summarize saying that I didn't really like the movie, but I appreciated the concepts that it was presenting, and I think the discussion about those, like we've had here, were more entertaining to me than the movie itself.
And that honestly, like I said, I had a feeling that it wasn't your kind of thing, but I knew us talking about it would be interesting.
Yeah.
So at the very least, we got that.
Yep.
And I really wanted to see your perspective on things because, and I'm just as guilty of this as any other American. We don't know.
Which is probably one of the most annoying aspects of the US.
Agreed. We're very America centric. And
Yeah.
I would love to learn
Because
more.
we all know everything about you guys.
I
Yeah.
know because we shove it down your throat, essentially.
Well, it's just that you just have that large footprint, right?
Though I do think that we think much more highly of ourselves than we should.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
at least I'm cognizant of that. Not a lot of Americans are. And it's difficult to learn more about other countries because of how America-centric even our literature is and things like that. So we'd really have to do a deep dive to find out real things about other countries. We have to do a deep dive to find out stuff about our country. So how about you, Jesse?
Yeah, I was right where Lou is. As I continue seeing this wild things and just ignoring the politics for a while, just because I was told Friday by my lovely bride that someone in her circle, I will not name who, is scared about all the postings I'm doing on Facebook
Oh
because,
no.
because I'm so angry. And I can't believe Jesse's that I've never seen him that angry. This isn't the Jesse I know. But
You
the
must,
advertising that I
yeah.
see, I just go, it's the only thing they got wrong was the timelines.
Yeah. Imagine Amazon being Costco. I
Yeah.
could see it
You're a glutton for punishment, Jesse. You live in the
on social media anymore.
This is like ground zero.
Yeah, I
Yes.
agree.
So is
And
Alberta.
yeah, and I keep it in. My wife asked, "Why do you do this?" I said, "It makes me feel better."
And if you make even
It's
one
my valve
person,
release.
if
Yeah,
you make even one person see one of your points,
yeah,
then it's worth it. Because otherwise, we're not going to ever get that change in our country because the people that feel that way are going to indoctrinate their children, and then their children will indoctrinate their children, and it just will
yeah,
continue. That's why we have the social issues we have, racism and sexism, and
yeah,
all those things should be getting better, but they're not. It's
absolutely.
well-meaning. I'll put it that way. So yeah, I'm glad you guys humored me with this. I know sometimes I propose the weirdest things, but I do have a mindset behind it at the very least. And I am truly glad that we could have this conversation. And we like talking to you guys too, our listeners. We hope we haven't put you off too much with this
Oh, I'm
conversation,
sure.
but
Given
there's
the
a few,
population
I'm
we have.
sure. We mean it in the best way. We really do. We just want the best for the people around us. And even if you don't agree with us, we still want the best for you. And I feel like if that's the only message you take away from this conversation, then maybe we've done our job. With that, how about you, Jesse?
So I am at Jesse Jackson, DFW on Twitter, aka X. Jesse Jackson on Facebook. Go be warned. Yes, you can hear me on Set Lusting Bruce, Bruce Springsteen fan podcast. I have an episode coming out recently where Keith DeCardo joined me and we talked about the late great Peter David and shared some stories of him. Very sad to see that Peter passed after a very long illness. And we are talking John Hyatt on Perfectly Good Podcast. And John does not do a lot of covers. And this week we are talking about Living a Little, Laughing a Little, which was the Spinner song. He covered it. And we have Diane Davidson, who sang background on the song. So,
Awesome.
yes.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was sad to see Peter David go. Again, we're losing voices in the wilderness here. Lou, how about you?
You can, of course, find me on this very channel, JKL Media Reviews on YouTube. And I think it's my turn next.
Yes.
And I have two choices.
Oh, good.
It's either Pan's Labyrinth or The Devil's Backbone.
Okay.
You can check the movie descriptions and tell me which one you want to do.
I saw Pan's Labyrinth a long time ago.
Pan's Labyrinth or The Devil's Backbone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pan's Labyrinth, at the very least. Very good. I wouldn't mind seeing that again.
Yeah.
But I'll look into
Either one.
We'll do Pan's Labyrinth because it's
Let's
in
do
English.
that.
Devil's Backbone, Spanish subtitles.
Okay.
I'm excited to see that again.
You can also find me on my own YouTube channel, Lou's Reviews, where you'll find my writers podcast as well as our archived Babylon 5 entire series, including the recent animated movie. They're all there, 5 years plus the animated movie. And I'm also doing a Stephen King podcast.
I opened it and then I got
a review
pulled
of it.
away. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I just started it, and as soon as it's done, I know we want to talk about that.
Yeah.
You can find me at Lou W. Sitzma, the same on Blue Sky.
Cool. Okay, so you can email us at jklmediareviews@gmail.com, and you can find me at Oliveria on social media, even though I'm not there very often. And my blog is Allie's Stuff, which contains a lot of links that you might be interested in.
Cool. Two other things I wanted to mention that I would like to put as pins for us to think about doing in the future is I just saw the trailers for season 5 of Stranger Things. So they're doing like a 3-episode event in November, December, New Year's Eve. So I think it would be fun for us to cover that. That's the final season. And also I just saw the trailer for Del Toro's, which is what sparked my Pan's Labyrinth. He's done a Frankenstein movie for Netflix, which is coming out in November. Check out the trailers for those two. I would like to throw my hat in for us covering both of those.
I'm up for either of those or both of those, definitely. I love Stranger Things.
Yeah.
I have not.
Ooh.
And so it's
You
on
got
my
that till the end of the year.
Yeah.
We could cover a season at a time or something. If
I
you
could
wanted.
If you do a season and you say, hey, I want to talk about this, then we can do that too. So,
It'd be good for you to watch it because of the characters.
yeah.
Okay, so I would say I would love to talk about a few Black Mirror episodes and a few other movies. And I'm going to try and stick to science fiction as much as I can.
No, you choose whatever you want to.
Okay, so with that, I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. I hate saying goodbye to Lou and Jesse, but I will have to do that because I do have to read Never Flinch. And so we will talk to you next time and we'll have something new for you then.
Pants
And scene. The proceeding has been a JKL Media production.